So, how do you keep your solos interesting? Of course, there are a million different aspects that go into the answer of this question, but I think the most important one is, at least for me, to think of your solos as a story that you tell people, or as a speech that you give the audience. When you think of a really good speaker, he uses a lot of different techniques to keep the audience interested and to keep it engaged. So he will speak at different volumes. He will make little pauses here and there to really emphasize the important things. He will go up with his voice. He will go down with his voice, and so he just keeps the audience engaged. And I think it's basically the same thing with playing solos. So you just want to have a good story that you tell people. And of course, you don't have words, you have notes, and you have your licks, your very own repertoire of licks. So you want to keep it as lively as possible. And speaking in musical terms, there are different concepts how to keep it interesting, just like a speech or a story. And I think one of the most important is call and response. Now, what that means is that you have different phrases or different licks that serve different purposes. One puts out a question, and another one puts out an answer. My favorite example for this is "Hideaway" by Freddie King. It's a blues classic, and it goes like this. At least that's the beginning of the tune. And you heard two different phrases here. And now what the first phrase does is it puts out a question, so to speak. Why? Because we land on a note that creates some tension. We land on a third. We're in the key of E, and the note that we land on is a G sharp, which is the major third of E. And what this note does, is it creates tension. And just like when you put out a question, you create a tension, and it needs an answer to the question to release that tension again. And that's exactly what the second lick does here. Because the second lick goes down to the root note again. In this case, the E. So, first on a third, creates tension, and the root note releases the tension. And that's a perfect example for this call and response or question and answer thing that you really can use to put a little storyline into your solos. And you can use this like when I start to improvise. Let's say we have a simple shuffle groove. So I used that same principle, and now I try to put out questions and answers, and it could go like this. So in these examples, I mainly used the third and the root note. The third for creating tension, and the root note to create the answer or to release the tension. But there are other notes inside the blues scale or inside the pentatonic scale or whatever scale you play that create tension, and other ones that create release. So the tension notes are usually the third, the seventh, and the release notes are the root note and the fifth. I don't want to go too much in detail about this now, but just check it out for yourself and use it. So, and the other big thing about playing a solo, like telling a story, is to be able to think like a singer, which means to think in melodies, because melodies really are, compared to just licks. Licks are cool and all, but melodies really tell you more than a lick. So, I'm not saying that every solo that you play should be singable, so that every line that you play should be singable. It can be, but it doesn't have to. Of course, you can use all the great licks that you have in your tool bag to enrich all those melodies. But I think you have to think in a broader melodic context. So, and I had a lot of students over the time that found this very hard to do. And my advice to them is, when you have a backing track and you want to compose a solo or you want to improvise over it, but you just feel like you're stuck in all your licks, just put the guitar away for 5 or 10 minutes and just sing over the backing track. It doesn't matter if you actually are a good singer. It's just that you develop the mindset of a singer. And so you will come up with probably pretty easy melodies. And what you then do is to translate those melodies on the guitar, and then maybe play it and use the techniques that you have, like bending and vibrato, to make it sound like a voice, and then to combine it with all of the great licks that you have in your tool bag. So let's see if I can make an example here. I think a pretty good one is I did a few years ago for Jam Track Central. I did a tune that was called Nobody's Business, and the chorus went something like this. The backing track is in D mixolydian. The melody was something like. So it wasn't exactly like this. If you want to know the exact version, just look up Nobody's Business on YouTube. But I think the idea is pretty clear. I had this main melody line, which is pretty singerish. That's pretty much a line that a singer could use. And then I just combined it with all my licks. Whatever it happens to be in your case. But that's basically the thought. Just combine good melodies, good and simple melodies, with all the tricks in your tool bag, and you're good to go. And I promise you, you will sound a lot more musically interesting than when you just slam out all the licks and stuff that you learned over the years. So that would be my advice to write an interesting solo.